tag me in if
the
you got
Canucks
one.
have to find a way, do they not, to make Pettersson a center? Like, I get the argument that he's going to start as a right winger, but long
so
term,
much of his production has been on the wing. He sets up with that great quick release, the speed that he's able to generate on the wing, his quickness. A lot of his skill set feeds. And even when he was drafted, there were a lot of people who said, like, this guy's going to be a winger in the NHL. And there are, like, slight guys who are 170 pounds, 180 pounds, generally have more success on the wing. I'm not saying he can't play center. I mean, we'll see. They're definitely going to try, and we'll see how it pans out. But I'm just saying that there is a possibility that the best Pettersson you're going to have is Pettersson on the right side.
Well, it scares me for a couple of reasons. One is, and look, we've made it abundantly clear, and we're not the only guys, that this team needs skill at all areas. So to have two very productive right wingers isn't necessarily an issue. But like, I want more Besser. I don't want Pettersson eating into Besser's role on his hockey club.
Well, I mean, they can both be on the first power play. Like, there's lots of ways to get them both minutes. Where I get concerned is if he's not a center, then I start to look at the organizational depth chart at in the middle, and I go, okay, Horvat, and then Sutter,
No,
and then Gagne, and then Gaudette. Like, that's not like that. I see that, and I'm like, oh shit! Like, they need a fucking center. If he's not going to be center, like, they need one. Like, they need a really highly skilled center.
right. So Sutter's not their second line center. Like, they're going into the market. They're going to find a free agent. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Brandon Sutter is not going to be this team's second line center. It's just not going to happen.
Well, he'll play the second most minutes
That
among the centers.
may happen.
Horvat will play the most. Sutter will play the second most. And then there will be a guy, maybe Bozak. Heard Green really likes Bozak. It's the story going around. I'm not sure. I do know that Bozak is interesting because I haven't scraped all the numbers on this, but someone was telling me, like, in the past couple of years, like, he obviously he's not a physical guy, and he avoids contact, which I'm not sure how Green would react to that, but it's kept him healthy. I think he's only missed 5 games in the past couple of years, and that, to me, he's a mediocre player. He's a meh player for sure, but there is some value in guys that can stay in the lineup and guys that can play 80 games. I think he was 78 2 years ago. I think he was 81 this past season. The Canucks had the fewest guys in the league who played at least 75 games. They need guys who can stay in the lineup, and a lot of times that means they need guys who don't hit or don't get hit.
Right, and we know what Daniel and Henrik have meant to this organization for a lot of years, but in these
They
last
had that skill, avoiding contact.
yeah, exactly. Right. And sometimes it is a skill, and other times it does talk about, willing to engage, I suppose.
I think more players are like, if you watch James Neal now, like, James Neal plays totally differently than he used to. Like, he used to be one of those kind of, is he going to be a mythical power forward type guy? And he's a different player now, and he's not as physical as he used to be, and he's staying in the lineup, which wasn't always the case back in the day.
Just back to 7 for a sec. They get the 7th overall selection, and I suppose, now it's spawned this whole discussion of trade up, trade down, which seems like a lot of wasted breath too, because trading up and trading down almost never happens in the top 10
Well,
of the
certainly
National
trading.
Hockey
I
League.
don't get the trading up. Like, trading up, Canucks are going to pay extra assets to trade up for whom? Who are they trading up for?
My guess would be Quinn Hughes would be the one guy.
Is he? Like,
But
I don't think they're in a position. I honestly don't think they're in a position to try to trade up. And none of the guys that you're gonna talk about or possibly bring up, I think all of them have questions. Shvetsnikov probably would be the best, but then there's this big question about how old is he really? So I mean, that's a big risk, and you probably have to trade up to 2 to get him. After that, Zadina and Tkachuk, they're not, like, for the Canucks position, they're not really worth trading up for, and I don't think the defensemen are either. I think the conversation should revolve around, should they trade down, and they tried last year. They tried. Jim talked to the Sabres, the Rangers, and Vegas, all of them. and try to trade down. Came close a couple of times, and I think there's that draft. Like, I think he had a deal with I think he thought he had a deal with McPhee, and McPhee ended up pulling out of it. But he also talked to the Rangers and the Sabres, and then word started going out that Pettersson someone could jump them and then get Pettersson. They're like, fuck that, we're staying where we are. We're going to get this guy.
And every draft is different, I get that, but are you at all encouraged by the fact, like recent 7th overall picks? I mean, look at the playoffs that Mark Scheifele's having in Winnipeg. Clayton Keller was a 7th overall pick. Provorov was a 7th overall pick. Even Darnell Nurse. Like, there are legitimate NHLers and some stars now. And as I said, every year is different, so there's no guarantee that you're getting that kind of player at 7. But this is where Jim has to do what we always talk about Jim Benning doing, and that is his best work, being able to unearth, whether it was Elias Pettersson a year ago or Brock Besser at 23rd. He's got to swoop in here.
Well, we need the 2017 Canucks drafting, not the 2016 Canucks drafting. And recently, like, I found some crazy information about the draft. Like, this writer texted me. I don't know if he's written the story about it yet or not, so I'm not going to name him, but he texted me. He said, like, how deep do you think an NHL draft board goes? And I was texted back, I don't know, probably, I think there's 210 or whatever, 220 guys that are drafted. So, I don't know, 250, I would suspect the draft board goes. And then he said, no, I've heard it goes only 100 deep. I was like, what? So he started texting around some other people, contacts he knew. I started contacting some other teams and scouts and stuff that I know. And I think the consensus of it all ended up being that every team's draft board is only about 120 deep, which is like what gets you through the 3 round, gets you into the 4th round, which is wild. And all the time, or most of the time, they're 100 or 120 don't get picked, which means that everyone's like, the first round happens and everyone's got a good feel of the first round, and then the top of the second round happens, and then all the teams like branch off and have their own lists and their own ideas and their own like rankings. And like, for example, I found out that in the Gaudreau year, I think he was taking the 4th, there were scouts around the NHL that building their 120, he wasn't on it. Too small, can't play. He's not on my board at all. Not on your board at all. Like, wouldn't even take a 7th on him. So, I mean, to me it explains, like, the Ty Ronning story is that someone from the Giants called the Rangers just before their pick and said, there's a connection between the Giants and the Rangers, and the two guys that know each other got on the phone, and the Giants guy said, like, take Ronning, you won't be disappointed, and they said, okay, like, we'll take Ronning. Which, I mean, they were probably at the end of their 100 or 120, but like, it's just crazy to me to imagine that all these teams have these different lineups of their 100, and their 100 doesn't end up getting picked. And all this is to say, like, obviously the 100 that the Canucks had, or their 120, wasn't great in 2016, and it's sure looking however they put that same list together in 2017, and there is a massive difference. And you can talk to I've talked to other teams about the guys that the Canucks picked, and for instance, Palmu, who was, I think, a 6.
Yeah.
There were multiple teams that had him that wanted to take him. So, to me, like, they obviously and I think he just won Rookie of the Year. He's a little bit older, yes, but he won Rookie of the Year
in Finland. Yeah,
right. A great pick, right? Like, great pick. Like, other teams wanted him. He was on their 100. He made it on the Canucks 100. They got him in the 6. Great pick, I think. And 2016, you just don't see that. Like, there's a massive, if you talk to people in the NHL and they break down the boards of who that Canucks ended up with 2016 and who they ended up with 2017, there's a canyon of difference in terms of how they strategized it, who they targeted, the types of players, and the reasons why. And I think part of it is, the kind of analytics that they brought into it. So if they have that 2017 same, system and same draft, I'm pretty confident that they're going to get not only the right guy at 7, but they're going to get the right guys later on in the draft.